Hello, I'm Adeline, and my mother didn't invite me to participate in my sister's wedding celebration. She commanded me to sit, dressed in a beige outfit that clashed, positioned by the speaker stack rather than the stage. I played the melody that accompanied her beloved daughter's momentous occasion. They believed I would remain quiet, that I would simply sit there, compliant, and fade into the background of the keys. However, I chose not to engage with what was presented to me. I embraced all that they sought to obliterate, and when the speakers shifted to my father's voice, the room absorbed the truth they had concealed. They betrayed those who had concealed it. What about their faces? This is a memory that will stay with you forever. Before we embark on this journey, may I ask what time it is for you and where you are tuning in from? Share your thoughts below. Have you ever felt like your own family used you to elevate someone else's status? It was a Thursday when the envelope arrived. A plain envelope, devoid of a return address, crafted from cream cardstock adorned with a delicate gold border. My mailbox number scrawled in unsteady handwriting adds an air of mystery. For a fleeting instant, I believed it to be mere remnants of junk mail or perhaps a church bulletin that had found its way to me by error. At that moment, I decided to open it. Within lay a wedding invitation. The day of Callista's wedding arrived, filled with anticipation and joy. My sister's story unfolds with every moment we share. Or, to be precise, the daughter of Vera. It announced, "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Callista Wren and Emerson Hayes. It would bring us great joy to have you join us as our tentative piano guest on this special day." Untitled. Only that designation. A guest at the piano. Uncertain. I stared at it so long the corners started to curl from the heat of my fingers. A formal greeting was absent altogether. Alas, dear Odalyn, we truly wish for your presence. Merely a conjecture. That I would arrive, perform something gentle, remain silent, and depart without drawing attention. My thumb brushed over the embossed ink like it could reveal something kinder beneath. It didn't. I folded the card twice, slowly, then pressed it flat again and placed it inside the drawer under my dish towels. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow in my kitchen. In the heart of springtime Savannah, the dogwoods burst into bloom once more, seemingly oblivious to the years I had spent feeling unseen and forgotten. Later, I was set to impart a lesson at the community center. As I arrived, I found one of my regular students, Jolie, a 12-year-old with braces and big brown eyes, patiently waiting for me. While I adjusted the strings of the upright Yamaha, she eagerly bounced on the bench and exclaimed, "Miss Wren, I spotted your sister in Bridal Style magazine at Walgreens. Her beauty is truly captivating." A smile spread across my face. The kind that remains distant from your gaze. "She's about to embark on a new journey," I remarked, as I adjusted the music stand. "A grand celebration of love." Jolie tilted her head. "Will you take part in it?" I remained silent. I handed her the sheet music and asked her to play the scales. Yet within, a transformation occurred. The sensation lingers, a familiar discomfort nestled beneath the ribs, ignited when someone utters your sister's name as if it were a treasure, while yours barely registers, a mere whisper, if acknowledged at all. Callista had always been destined for the spotlight. From a young age, she stood out with her perfectly coordinated hair ribbons and piano recitals that captivated audiences, often culminating in thunderous applause. In the shadows, I found myself, a silent observer, my hands coming together with fervor, echoing the rhythm of belonging, longing to be woven into the fabric of the moment. Following the conclusion of class, I lingered in my car for a moment, contemplating before making my way home. The dashboard clock illuminated the time, 5:42 p.m., yet I remained still, the engine silent. I just observed the children burst forth from the center, laughter ringing in the air, backpacks swaying, embodying that vibrant, unrestrained spirit I once believed would endure endlessly. As the sound of my phone pierced the silence, I felt a sense of anticipation wash over me. "Vera." "Hi, Mom," I replied, preparing myself for what was to come. "Ah, splendid," she remarked. "I had been looking forward to seeing you. We are putting the finishing touches on the wedding preparations." Time stretched on as I lingered. she pressed on. Callista envisions an atmosphere that is tasteful and elegant, free from distractions. We were considering the idea of you playing something light, perhaps background music, certainly nothing too dramatic. The sound of her spoon gently clinking against the ceramic echoed in the air, as if I were merely another task on her agenda, nestled among seating charts and floral arrangements. She remarked that the essence transcends the music itself. It revolves around her experiences throughout the day. Just something straightforward, something we know well. My grip on the phone grew firmer. The tension in my forearm was palpable, each muscle twitching beneath the surface, yet my voice emerged as a whisper. Of course, I'm here to help with whatever you require. Wonderful, she exclaimed. Ah, and there's just one more detail to consider. There's no need to stress over your outfit. It carries a sense of closeness rather than rigidity. After the call ended, I lingered at the kitchen table for a moment. Merely remained in place. My hand clung to the phone as if it were the sole anchor in this absurd act we all continued to play, masquerading as a family. As the evening unfolded, I found myself drawn to my email, eager to uncover the details of the upcoming rehearsal. Vera had sent along the list of guests. I moved through a list of unfamiliar names. Leader of the foundation. Dr. Mendez-Plan. Perhaps Aunt Shelley. At that moment, it revealed itself to me. Odalyn Wren. A girl at the piano. Be mindful of your attire. With a decisive motion, I shut the laptop, sealing away the digital world for the moment. On my bookshelf, nestled within a faded pale blue folder from years past, lay an old recital program. It had been ages since I last opened it. It was during my senior performance, a moment frozen in time before the tides of change swept in. There it was, elegantly inscribed in a flowing script. Odalyn Wren. Solo performer. With my finger, I followed the contours of the letters. With a gentle fold, I tucked the program away, sliding it into the drawer where the wedding invitation lay waiting. Next to each other, one revealed my true self, while the other reflected their perception of who I had become. She believed that her willingness to play was a gesture of reconciliation. She remained unaware that this was merely the beginning of her downfall. On a late Friday morning, the package finally made its arrival. No note. No brand label. A simple brown box, unadorned, bearing my address alongside Vera's name as the sender. I brought it into the house and placed it on the modest kitchen table, the very one I relied on for organizing bills and lesson plans, and more recently, for processing emotional turmoil. With a swift motion, I severed the tape and gently lifted the flaps. Within the confines of the bag lay a gown, delicately folded and encased in clear plastic. Soft and muted, a gentle hue that whispers of warmth and simplicity. Not sparkling wine. Do not show any signs of embarrassment. Not cream. Sand-colored. A hue that once adorned waiting rooms, now faded from memory. The hem was worn and frayed, while the neckline sloped awkwardly to one side, as if it had been modified at some point but ultimately abandoned. The air carried a subtle scent reminiscent of forgotten boxes and dusty corners. I carried it into the living room, lifting it before the mirror. The image didn't align with the group photo Callista had shared with the bridesmaids earlier that week. 6 women poised gracefully in a gentle pink gradient, each dress perfectly fitted to their forms, hair elegantly curled and glistening beneath a warm golden glow. My presence felt out of place in the image. I reached for my phone and sent a message to Vera. Excuse me, could you tell me if this is the correct dress? My version stands apart from the rest. Her response arrived without delay. Vera. It holds a balanced perspective. You'll find yourself at the piano regardless. No one will pay you any mind. I lingered on those words far longer than was necessary. It wasn't the element of surprise that caught me off guard, but rather the effortless way she could still leave me in awe. It felt as though I was clinging to a fragile hope, defying all logic, that perhaps one day she would respond with a simple, "Oops, that was a mistake." You are worthy of more. I carefully folded the dress into my travel garment bag, taking a moment to remind myself to breathe. I was on my way to a rehearsal dinner. As the sun dipped low in the sky, I found myself stepping through the doors of the Rosemore Inn, the venue for the evening's welcome dinner. The aroma of garlic mingled with the fragrance of freshly cut hydrangeas in the main dining hall. As the evening unfolded, guests began to arrive, a tapestry of the groom's friends and distant cousins from afar. Some wore name tags, while others exchanged warm smiles over flutes of champagne, weaving through the gathering with an air of cordiality. At the far end of a lengthy banquet table, I noticed my name carefully folded within a small card. My chair sat just beside the door that opened into the catering kitchen. A waiter presented me with water, accompanied by a fleeting glance and the sort of nod reserved for colleagues rather than patrons. A few moments later, Callista entered the room, radiating elegance in her delicate silk attire and flawless makeup. Her hair cascaded in effortless waves, each curl telling a story of grace and beauty. She noticed me and approached with an air kiss that felt utterly devoid of warmth. "Ah, you've arrived," she remarked. "I informed the planner of your attendance for the music arrangements, ensuring they wouldn't need to modify the seating arrangements. Are you skilled in something traditional, perhaps? Straightforward? I assured you that simplicity would suit you well." Her tone was airy, as if she were chatting about the hues of napkins. I gave a brief, stiff nod. "Absolutely," I replied, "simplicity is my forte." Just as I was about to take my seat, Emerson made his way over. He reached out with a smile that spoke of political charm. "You must be Adeline," he said. "Callista mentioned that you hold the role of the family pianist." The groom's mother, a statuesque figure adorned in a burgundy wrap dress, leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "That's sweet," she said, her hand gently resting on my arm. "Having reliable assistance at a significant occasion like this is truly essential." Engaged assistance. I parted my lips to speak, yet Vera had seamlessly slipped into the circle. She chuckled softly, dismissing the remark as if it held no weight. From a tender age, Adeline has immersed herself in the world of piano, her fingers dancing over the keys with a grace that speaks to her lifelong passion. She has consistently proven to be dependable. Dependable. Lacking in skill. Unfulfilled. Simply reliable. The way you might describe a person who takes care of your feline friend while you're away, ensuring they receive love and attention in your absence. I paused, a smile creeping onto my face as I held my breath. We took our seats. I nibbled at the rim of my plate as the laughter and clinking of glasses filled the air, a symphony of camaraderie among those who seemed to share a long history. From time to time, a pair of eyes would drift in my direction, perhaps to ensure I remained in place. Yet, no one inquired about anything beyond my intended performance, nor did they question if I would don something different. Tomorrow will be formal. As the evening drew to a close, I expressed my gratitude to the servers, then made my way outside, strolling to my car beneath the gentle glow of the streetlights. The sound of my shoes echoed against the gravel lot, a solitary reminder of my insignificance in the vastness around me. Returning to the Airbnb, I slipped out of the beige dress and carefully spread it across the guest bed. The fabric absorbed the overhead light, appearing dull and devoid of vitality. The garment resembled a hotel curtain more than it did a dress. I gazed into the reflection before me. My reflection stood unwavering. Yet, I did. A sensation coiled tightly within my chest. Blunt. Profoundly immersive. Like a mark that lingered, refusing to disappear. Eventually, I unzipped the front pocket of my suitcase and retrieved the black velvet folder that accompanied me to every performance. Within lay my fragments. Rachmaninoff. Liszt. Chopin. Melodies that once lifted me from the shadows, making me feel significant. I perched on the edge of the bed, turning to the first page. I came with purpose, not to merely occupy a spot. Yet, I had no intention of fading away, either. I told myself it didn't matter. I was here for peace. For the family. For them. Yet, as the sun began its ascent beyond the magnolia trees, a realization dawned upon me: I had erred in my judgment. The wedding ceremony unfolded outdoors, under a canopy of white drapery and delicate string lights that began to flicker gently in the soft afternoon haze. Garden chairs were positioned around a humble altar, embraced by the delicate embrace of climbing roses. In the distance, a group of servers meticulously arranged water glasses and adjusted the dessert table beneath a protective canopy, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed performance. I had made my entrance ahead of time. The directives from Vera. She had hoped I would check the microphone, ensure that your charming piano harmonized with the arrangement, as though I had transported the Steinway baby grand here on my own. The piano sat in an odd spot, wedged between the towering speaker stack and a catering tent that wafted the enticing aromas of chicken marsala and rosemary. It stood apart from the stage, its orientation not directed at the audience. It sat there, as if it were a forgotten piece of furniture, misplaced and waiting for someone to find its rightful spot. I glided my fingers across the keys, shifting the bench into place, acutely aware of the sweat pooling between my shoulder blades. Once more, I found myself in the beige dress. This time, I let the creases remain, untouched and unapologetic. Vera's voice echoed behind me, already equipped with a microphone. "Shall we conduct a brief examination, then? Here are a few observations." I nodded and let my fingers dance over the keys, weaving a gentle arpeggio. The speakers picked it up late, reverberating the sound as if it were an unwelcome guest in the room. I made another attempt, taking my time, as Vera faced the gathering, raising her hand to block the sunlight from her eyes. "Absolutely perfect," she remarked. She pivoted to face the assembled guests, a warm smile gracing her lips as she addressed them through the microphone. "Greetings to all who have gathered here. What a splendid day for a festivity. Before we embark on this journey, a brief message. Today's ceremony unfolds with a unique flair. A skilled little companion will weave a melodic backdrop as the event unfolds. She has consistently excelled at remaining in the shadows." Soft chuckles filled the air. A handful of individuals offered tentative applause, their uncertainty evident as they questioned whether it was appropriate to do so. I remained steady, yet a subtle tremor danced in my hand over the keys, a fleeting moment, as if my body was on the verge of revealing its secrets. I managed a faint smile, directing my attention to the contrasting black and ivory before me. I reminded myself to stay focused and not draw attention. "It's merely a collection of sounds. This is a task you've mastered countless times before." Time stretched on as I lingered in anticipation. The true signal was still awaited. Vera stepped away from the platform as a group of bridesmaids strolled by, fixing their hair, snapping selfies, and exchanging compliments about each other's lashes. One looked my way and remarked, "Cute dress," much like one might comment on a nice umbrella on a bright, sunny day. Then Callista glided forward, her presence illuminating the aisle as if the day were hers to command. She appeared absolutely stunning, naturally. Her gown embraced her form as if it were liquid silk, perfectly molded to her silhouette. She had always possessed the ability to seize the light. She leaned in, her lips nearly grazing my ear. Her perfume wafted through the air, a blend of lavender and an air of superiority. "Would you be so kind as to play this?" She leaned in close, her voice barely above a breath, as she placed a carefully folded sheet of music onto the stand. "I crafted it solely for this moment. It goes by the name Promise of a Perfect Day. Gentle and unpretentious, reminiscent of the carefree days of our childhood play." I gazed intently at the scrawled notes before me. The chord progressions were simple and expected, while the melody moved cautiously rather than with exuberance. It transcended mere amateurism, it was downright juvenile. And she urged me to perform it, before this crowd of onlookers. The past pulled at me, a delicate thread slowly coming undone. At 17 once more, I found myself beneath the scorching stage lights of a regional competition, my fingers dancing effortlessly over the keys as I played Chopin's Ballade in G minor. Vera occupied a seat in the third row, her hands clasped firmly in her lap. Callista lingered towards the rear, adorned in a floral dress, her expression marked by an air of impatience. In the moments that followed, she remained silent, her hands still at her sides. On that very night, tears streamed down her face in the car, and I can still recall the soft whimper that escaped her lips. Your focus is consistently on yourself. Dara had turned around and snapped, could you just stop stealing every moment from your sister? That was the moment something cracked. The piano had once felt like breath and fire in my bones. After that night, it felt like guilt, like vanity, like something I should hide. I looked at the sheet again, simple and soft. Of course, so I stay forgettable. The guests began to shift. The procession was about to start. I made a few tweaks to the music on the stand. With a gentle pause, my fingers danced above the keys, and the music flowed forth. The tune danced softly through the garden, reminiscent of a child hesitating to find its footing. It remained silent. It occupied the void. It resonated gently, then faded away before anyone could recall its presence. The applause from the ceremony still echoed faintly across the lawn when I slipped away from the noise. I ventured only a short distance, just past the dancing glow of the string lights, along the winding stone path that meandered behind the reception tent. The magnolias receded, revealing my presence before the hydrangea bushes that lined the fence. And that was her place in the world. Grandma Miriam sat comfortably in a white wicker chair, her cardigan gently resting over her shoulders. She hummed gently, as she often did when her hands were free. The moment the sound reached my ears in the stillness of the night, I was struck by the realization of how deeply I had longed for it. She turned her head just before I spoke, as if she had sensed my approach all along. There you are, she remarked. Her voice felt more delicate than I recalled, yet it still held the same comforting essence that had eased my pain during every scraped knee and heartache. You looked lovely out there, even if they tried to hide you. I took a seat on the modest bench facing her. The stillness enveloped us, a comforting shroud that felt both known and secure. As she extended her hand toward me, a silent connection sparked between us. Her fingers quivered ever so slightly as she placed something into my palm. A weathered envelope, its edges tinged with yellow, lay folded in silence. This was meant for you, she whispered softly. It was never sent. I cast my gaze downward. Only my name, penned in his faded script, with no return address in sight. The seal had been shattered. I eased it open, as if it could break apart in the atmosphere. Within the envelope lay a letter from Juilliard, announcing a full scholarship, a summer intensive, and subsequent fall admission, all dated 15 years prior. In the midst of everything, the simple act of breathing slipped from my mind. As I revisited the text, I took my time, allowing my gaze to linger on the phrase that spoke of extraordinary potential and an uncommon mastery of tone. I recalled that audition vividly, the journey home filled with the ache in my fingers from the Rachmaninoff cadenza, my chest still rising and falling from the remnants of nerves. That night, Vera had walked into my room and said, they weren't interested, too many better candidates this year. In that fleeting moment, I found myself entrusting her completely. It was consumed entirely, a tightness gripped my throat. Grandma remained silent. She just watched me, her eyes damp but steady. In that moment, it became clear to me that she was aware, perhaps not of every detail, but certainly of the essential truths. The remaining pieces of the puzzle fell into place with surprising ease. A week later, Vera found herself standing next to Callista at the rather absurd ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Youth Arts Collective, a music non-profit that Callista had established with support from the very foundation that collaborated with Juilliard. The article in the paper came back to me vividly. Vera's words echoed in my mind as she repeatedly referred to Callista as a visionary. I recalled the sensation of becoming smaller. My vision had always been unwavering. It lay hidden beneath the earth. I remained seated, leaning slightly, the letter resting in my lap. My fingers had curled slightly, a subtle movement I hadn't noticed until the faint crease in the paper caught my eye. I caressed it softly, then brought it together once more, this time according to my own design. A gentle wind whispered through the leaves of the trees that stood behind us. From the main lawn, laughter danced through the air, accompanied by the delicate tinkle of glassware. Grandma leaned in, gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. You were never weak, she said. They ensured you felt diminished, obscuring the strength that resided within you. I gave a slight nod, remaining silent. Doubt lingered within me, casting shadows on my confidence. Upon my return to the reception hall, the sound of my heels echoed sharply against the hardwood floor. The lights within the room had softened, casting a gentle glow as the slideshow began. All eyes were drawn to the projector screen, illuminated in bursts of vibrant hues and echoes of youthful memories. The title card displayed, "Our Journey, Callista and Family." I found myself positioned towards the rear. The initial slide captured Callista at the tender age of 4, adorned in a tutu, while the following one depicted her joyfully blowing out candles on her 6th birthday. Next, there were recitals, with Callista clutching a petite violin, followed by a moment captured with a local choir. Amidst the collection, there were snapshots of sun-soaked beaches, the warmth of a Thanksgiving feast, and a fleeting video moment capturing Vera delicately adjusting Callista's sash during a middle school awards night. Time stretched on as I lingered. The cycle persisted. In the absence of any visual evidence, I found myself lost in a void of memories. No snapshots of my existence, not a single Halloween costume to recall, no piano trophies to celebrate my achievements, and certainly no group photo from the lake house, despite my certainty of being the one capturing the moment behind the lens. The audience offered a courteous round of applause as the performance concluded. Vera rose gracefully, raising a champagne glass that shimmered beneath the warm amber glow of the lights. "To my beautiful daughter," she expressed, "each moment spent with you has been a delight to remember." I didn't lift my glass. I didn't even blink. My gaze remained locked on the empty screen, now a stark white, as if it had been scrubbed free, reminiscent of a chalkboard that never bore my name in the first place. They hadn't just rewritten the story. They ensured that I was absent from it entirely. I maintained my composure. I chose to stay put. Yet within, a transformation occurred. A burden I had borne for years, the urge to remain silent, to preserve the tranquility, began to loosen its grip, little by little. This time I would not be defeated. The air held a refreshing chill as I stepped into the hotel. The profound stillness that envelopes the world in those early morning hours, just before the joyous celebrations of weddings begin. As I strolled through the valet lot, I held tightly to my folder of sheet music, my fingers brushing against the fabric of that beige dress, which hung unevenly, a reminder that it still felt foreign to me. I made my way to the main doors, the printed confirmation clutched tightly in my hand, anticipating a nod and a warm greeting. Rather, I found myself halted. A hotel coordinator, clipboard in one hand and headset clipped to her ear, raised her palm in a gesture of authority. "Hello. Vendors are checking in around the back," she remarked, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "I am not part of the catering team," I stated. "I am the sister of the bride." She paused, her eyes fluttering as if awakening from a dream. "Oh," she remarked with a deliberate pace, turning the pages with care. "Apologies, but you are simply. You were not included in the family section. We engaged you with music services." I remained motionless, the words reverberating against the glass walls of the atrium. With a smile that barely masked her tension, she beckoned someone closer. "Everything is okay. Allow her to pass." I was guided around to the side entrance, navigating through the service hallway, where I passed a man balancing stacked linens and a teenager busy unboxing plastic champagne flutes. As I stepped into the prep area of the ballroom, an odd feeling washed over me, as if I had never truly departed from backstage. Eventually, I ventured into the adjacent breakfast room for the family welcome meal. Vera had orchestrated an intimate formal gathering, her interpretation of Southern elegance, characterized by assigned seating and monogrammed cloth napkins. The tables were set in a wide U shape. My name has been discovered. Not beside Callista. Not among any cousins. Not even within the group designated as family. A solitary card rests at the periphery, positioned at a slight angle. Miss Odalyn Wren, the talented piano accompanist. I lingered in that moment, far beyond what was necessary. A staff member swept past, rearranging a centerpiece, casting a glance my way that suggested I was an obstacle in her path. As I settled into my seat, a hush enveloped me. From my vantage point, I observed as the others began to enter one by one. One cousin in a matching blush pink wrap dress, another bridesmaid squealed over mimosas. Then came Vera, moving with the ease of someone who owned the moment entirely. Last to enter was Callista. With hair elegantly swept into a chignon and skin radiating under the gentle glow of soft gold lighting. As she entered the room, applause erupted from the crowd. Vera approached her, gently pressing a kiss to her cheek. Then she faced me, her smile expertly crafted. She whispered, adjusting the neckline of Callista's dress, "Try not to play too loud during the vows. This is Callista's time to shine. Distractions are not welcome here." I acknowledged with a nod, yet chose to remain silent. Had I found my voice, it would have erupted as a cry. Instead, I rose and made my exit, offering a vague remark about needing to attend to the piano's tuning. It went largely unseen by those around. In the dimly lit hallway, I found myself leaning against the frigid marble wall, retrieving my phone from the depths of my clutch. As I delved into the depths of my draft folder, anticipation filled the air. There it was, just as I'd left it. Subject: resignation. Community arts program. I had written the draft weeks ago, assuming that after this wedding, after keeping my head down one last time, I'd be free. I'd walk away from teaching, from music, from the last tether that kept me hoping for something that never came. But now, I wasn't so sure. The blinking cursor held my gaze, a silent challenge in the stillness of the moment. My finger lingered uncertainly above delete, then drifted towards send. After that, I secured the screen. I delved into my bag, searching for tissues. Instead, my fingers grasped something more solid. More substantial. The Juilliard letter. I had placed it there before leaving the Airbnb, folded carefully beside my lipstick and metronome keychain. I slid it out. My thumb ran over the crease I'd made last night. Full academic award. Room and board. 5 words that once held immense significance, then faded into oblivion, and now carry an entirely new meaning. I might have chosen to go. I ought to have gone. Yet, I refrained. And the truth is, it wasn't due to my lack of readiness. A decision was made on my behalf, cloaked in the guise of love. Inhale deeply, a rhythm both calm and constrained. With a gentle motion, I folded the letter and carefully tucked it away once more. Upon my return to the breakfast room, I found that the plates had been largely cleared away. Amidst the gathering, laughter erupted, filling the air with a sense of joy and camaraderie. A toast had begun to rise among the gathering. Callista radiated joy. I walked back to my seat without a word. But before sitting, I unlatched the leather folder of sheet music I'd carried all morning. Tucked behind the requested selections was my own copy, handwritten, edited, bolded notes, swells I had mapped with pencil years ago. I switched it out. No one saw. It seems that no inquiries were made. Yet, they would listen. As the guests nestled into their white folding chairs under the sprawling magnolia canopy, the atmosphere grew heavy with a mix of eager anticipation and the warmth of the day. I found myself standing solitary by the piano, caught between the soft shadows and the bright light streaming through the delicate linen drapes overhead. My dress, a muted beige, remained subtly provocative, merging seamlessly with the backdrop of linen as if I were destined to fade away. The faint sounds of cousins and neighbors mingled in the air, while waiters glided by with trays of champagne. Just beyond the sheer curtain at the garden's boundary, Callista's voice floated through, drawing me in. Laughing, delicate, practiced. I glanced down at the keyboard and rested my hands above the keys. My fingers hovered, not touching, just breathing there. They'd told me exactly what to play. Promise of a perfect day. A piece that wasn't written for music but for optics. Ephemeral, airy, and easily dismissed. The perfect melody to enhance the bride's glow, allowing her to shine while keeping the focus beautifully subtle. Yet, as the initial note drew near, I found myself not reaching for Callista's sheet music. In that moment, I chose to grasp my own. Nestled within the pages as if it had belonged all along. With careful hands, I set the sheet upon the stand. Thus, my journey commenced. The initial note emerged gradually, weightier than I had meant, tinged with uncertainty. Yet, it was the second that discovered it. And the third delved further. It was a melody I hadn't played aloud in 15 years. I'd written it during those lost afternoons in high school, when the world felt like too much and yet nowhere near enough. I played it to soothe myself when the rejection letters came in, not knowing they'd never been sent. The chords were dark, then rising, minor turns that flirted with hope. There was no bright resolution, just a truth I'd carried in secret for too long. The guests shifted in their chairs. A handful of murmurs. A throat was cleared. Yet, there was no interruption. Yet, I pressed on without hesitation. A hush settled like a soft blanket over the crowd. Even the servers had paused at the tent's edge. Then, halfway through the piece, just as I lifted into the bridge, the speakers crackled. A man's voice filled the garden. Not a stranger's. My father's story. To my daughter, Odalyn, the one who learned to soar despite the constraints we placed upon her. A shared moment of anticipation swept over the lawn. Many gazes shifted, the ministers among them. The voice continued, slow and worn with emotion. I recorded this the day Juilliard called. I wish I could have protected that dream longer. I wish I'd fought harder. I froze, hands suspended above the keys. The last time I heard that voice was at his funeral. The recording continued, brief yet sufficiently lingering. Sufficient to carve through the barriers of every space I had been denied access to. It was sufficient to express what others had feared to utter. The air was thick with an unexpected stillness, as breaths were held in awe. Callista, positioned elegantly at the beginning of the aisle, held her bouquet tightly, as if it were fragile, remaining still beneath the floral arch. Is that you, Vera? Vera remained utterly still, her gaze unwavering. She remained utterly motionless, her gaze fixed on the speaker, as if her fury alone could drive it away. With my eyes shut, I allowed the last notes to drift softly from my fingertips. They arrived without the sound of applause. They landed in silence. A silence that expands within, filling your chest with its weight. That causes individuals to perceive one another in a new light. For a fleeting moment, the world stood still. I raised my gaze. Not even the wind had the courage to stir. In that moment, I experienced a profound sense of presence, as if I had finally emerged from the shadows. I experienced a profound sense of existence. The last note hung in the atmosphere, caught between the limbs of the magnolia trees and the profound silence that enveloped the courtyard entirely. Silence enveloped the scene, as if time itself had paused. Not a single soul stirred. None had the courage to step forward. Callista stood motionless beneath the floral archway, the bouquet in her hand beginning to droop ever so slightly. Vera remained silent, yet her eyes flickered with urgency, as if they were on a quest for a narrative that had eluded her grasp. Then came the sound of a chair gently creaking. It was Thane Rowe. Once, he had stood before me as my conductor, back in the days when I held the belief that talent could transcend the murky waters of politics. Now older and heavier, yet still possessing a keen presence, he rose from the second row and advanced with the measured elegance that only someone accustomed to commanding a stage could exhibit. In his grasp lay a carefully folded piece of paper. The edges bore the marks of time, displaying creases that spoke of careful handling and cherished protection. There was a lingering doubt in my mind about whether this would ever escape the confines of my briefcase. He started, his voice steady yet composed. 15 years ago, I put my signature on this letter, adorned with Juilliard's letterhead, granting a full scholarship to Odalyn Wren. Gasps swept through the crowd, a sudden wave of surprise that stirred the air like a breeze rustling through golden fields. He lifted the page, presenting it to the guests as a maestro would elevate his baton before an audience. Her acceptance had been officially confirmed. What about her attendance? Obstructed. Breath escaped me. My fingers curled beneath the edge of the piano bench, a quiet anticipation building within me. Vera's complexion grew ashen. She clutched the edge of her seat, believing that by holding on, she could somehow stabilize the very fabric of her existence. Her lips opened slightly, then sealed once more. Silence lingered, as nothing emerged. Yet, Callista. Callista advanced, her head shaking with a feigned sense of levity. The letter in question. It remained unmailed. There is no evidence to suggest she was capable of managing that level of pressure within such an institution. Thane faced her, his expression a mystery. The funds were not mailed as a request from a family member prompted the foundation to redirect them. I possess that in written form. A whisper spread through the crowd. This time, it's not confusion, it's a moment of clarity. A handful of guests shifted their attention to Vera. Some moved in the direction of Callista. A couple rose from their seats, moving closer as if compelled to witness the moment firsthand. My body remained still. I found no necessity to do so. A faint whisper, almost lost in the rising hum, pierced the atmosphere. She imparted her wisdom to me. All eyes shifted. Lydia was the one. Once upon a time, there was a number, 12. Adorned in braces and ballet flats. A piano student of mine from the community center. She advanced, her fingers deftly manipulating a crumpled tissue. She showed me the essence of having faith in your voice, even when it goes unnoticed by others. Her voice trembled, and she fought back tears, blinking rapidly. In the quiet moments, I found myself whispering, even in the midst of play. She shared with me that remaining silent does not guarantee your safety. It simply renders you more forgettable. Her final utterance escaped her lips softly, yet resonated more powerfully than any amplified address that afternoon. Lydia turned her gaze in my direction, her eyes shimmering with a mix of emotion and pride. With a graceful pivot, she made her way back to her seat. Silence enveloped the room. Silence reigns. Only the stillness changes. A woman from the groom's side, his aunt, I would come to find out, remarked just loud enough for those around to catch, "She's the sole reason I chose to stay after the second toast." A nearby man inclined his head in agreement. Likewise. I remained seated, yet to rise. My hands lay gracefully upon my lap. I held my gaze firm. Vera appeared on the verge of expressing herself, perhaps even raising her voice, yet no one offered her a microphone. In that moment, there was an absence of unexpected grace, no pivotal instant where she could seize back her power. What about Callista? As she extended her hand toward the mic stand nestled behind the floral pedestal, it felt as though her gesture held no significance. The microphone had vanished. It had been taken before she arrived. I refrained from smiling. It wasn't that I lacked a stirring deep inside, rather, it was clear that what surged was not joy. It was a different experience, one that felt more subdued and steeped in history. The resonance of a long-awaited truth emerging into the light. Callista's fingers danced in the air, hesitant and restless. The microphone had disappeared, as if an unseen force had determined she had shared her words for eternity. She took a deep breath, summoned a fragile smile, and projected her voice without the aid of the amplifier. "Let us avoid getting caught up in dramatics," she started, her voice elevated beyond the norm, as though loudness could replace authenticity. This day, this ceremony, was intended to honor love and unity, rather than personal grievances or overblown displays. Her eyes scanned the courtyard, much like an artist assessing a hesitant crowd. "I understand emotions are running high," she declared, her hand resting dramatically on her chest. "However, it seems we can all come to a consensus that fabricated letters and orchestrated confessions have no place at a wedding." She hesitated, anticipating a courteous nod of concurrence. There existed nothing. Yet, she continued on her path. "Here lies the documentation that reveals the rejection of Adeline's application." Reluctantly, I found myself compelled to reveal this, especially in light of recent events. She pivoted, indicating a man clad in a dark suit, who presented her with a printed document extracted from a sleek leather folder. She raised it high, as if to present undeniable evidence before the jury. Juilliard declined, so although I have no doubt the tale was sincere, it lacked authenticity. Regrettably, we can no longer allow a piano player to dominate the entire wedding celebration. I remained steadfast. I remained utterly still. Yet, I sensed each step we took apart resonate like a gentle wave across still water. In that fleeting moment, the crowd held its breath, caught in a web of uncertainty, gauging her tone, measuring the depth of her confidence. The deception was adorned, presented flawlessly, and practiced meticulously. The ruse became clear to me. She was attempting to reshape the story, swiftly, while the feelings were still fresh. Vera offered a subtle, unwavering nod from her place, a gesture that conveyed encouragement, urging her to continue, as if to say, "There's still a chance they might trust your words." In that fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of it coming to life. Suddenly, a voice emerged from the side aisle, breaking the silence. "I don't care who said what," the man declared, standing tall in a crisp gray jacket. "I long to experience her music once more." A whisper swept across the gathering. A solitary clap echoed through the air. Another one came after. Then came a third. And none of it was meant for Callista. She attempted to voice her thoughts once more, yet her words were overwhelmed by a swell of enthusiastic applause. The spotlight, previously anchored firmly on the aisle, now shifted, almost with a sense of reluctance, back toward the grand piano. I rose, the soft beige fabric of my dress gliding against my calves, and made my way to the bench. Silence reigned, devoid of any proclamation or utterance. I found myself seated in stillness. My music folder rested on the stand, but within its confines, I tucked away a different page, one I had penned long ago, a composition that remained incomplete until just last night. The melody started softly. A solitary line. Then another one came along. And then arrived the thread that wove them into a tapestry, the lullaby my grandmother would softly hum, the melody that lingered beside the hydrangeas. The notes lacked sweetness. They stood firm in their determination. The chords remained silent. They revealed their truth. As the music ascended, weaving through each omission, every unvoiced insult, and every instance where I was instructed to sit quietly and smile, I sensed my chest expand. Not with sorrow. With precision. Individuals inclined their bodies, eager to engage. A few remained upright. From the periphery of my vision, I noticed a staff member making their way to the front. In his grasp, wrinkled yet whole, lay the original wedding invitation, the one that proclaimed, "Piano Girl." Uncertain. With a tender touch, he set it down beside the bench. A blue pen had been used to scrawl over it, leaving a chaotic mark behind. 4 words, concise yet confident. The one who was laid to rest. Yet another hand had marked that out as well. And beneath it, in more pronounced lines, the figure they ought to have honored. I continued to engage in the game. I kept my gaze fixed downward. Not even when I perceived the sound of someone weeping from the third row. Not even as Callista faced away from the throng. And not even as Vera quietly, almost imperceptibly, stood from her chair and slipped through the side garden gate. The conclusion arrived not with victory, but in a serene quiet, reminiscent of a lake settling after a tempest. There was no need for a signal. The applause erupted, unexpected and vibrant. Unhurried. Disrespectful. It resonated throughout the courtyard, weaving through the trees, bridging the gap of 15 years of silence. Yet it continued unabated. The breeze had grown a bit stronger as the final guests made their way out of the garden courtyard. Petals, once carefully arranged for the ceremony, now drifted haphazardly along the brick walkway. Champagne flutes lingered, half full and bearing the marks of a fleeting moment, their lipstick stains a testament to the stories once shared, now left behind. A string quartet discreetly gathered their instruments, leaving no trace of the performance behind. The echoes of applause had long since dissipated. Yet, its resonance remained. As I sat alongside my grandmother on the hotel terrace, the world around us unfolded like a story waiting to be told. She presented us with 2 cups of tea. Hers was a brew rich and deep, while mine was more delicate, yet neither of us had taken a sip. She leaned slightly forward in her chair, her fingers cradling the envelope as if she were gently securing a cherished memory once more. "The world didn't get it wrong, my dear," she murmured, her tone calm yet unwavering. "They arrived after the expected time." I remained silent. I observed her as she meticulously folded the Juilliard letter, reminiscent of how she once folded warm towels fresh from the line. Vera strolled by beneath us. She continued onward, unwavering and resolute, her heels clicking rhythmically against the ground, shoulders drawn back, eyes fixed on an unseen point in the distance. Her gaze remained fixed away from me. For the first time in years, I found myself not looking down. Callista lingered at the brink of the steps, close to one of the majestic magnolia trees. She held her bouquet like an afterthought. Not a single guest had followed her, not even the wedding planner. She captured my attention. A fleeting instant, delicate and nearly imperceptible, saw her chin rise just a fraction, as though she were poised for my approach. "Speak your mind. Perhaps provide her with a dignified way out." I did not. She was the one to blink first, while I remained seated next to my grandmother. As the evening wore on and the cleanup crew busied themselves with folding chairs and rolling away cables, I caught the sound of someone speaking near the exit. A figure clad in a dark jacket emerged, a familiar face among the donors who had conversed with Thane not long before. I gathered merely shards. Deceptive portrayal. Consideration of morality. Review of the board. The conversation revolved around Callista's music foundation. Vera's name surfaced briefly, only to vanish in an instant. Not raised in volume. Noted with care. A note that resonates, hanging in the atmosphere even after the space has emptied. Within the confines of the venue, an individual was diligently revising the event program on the website. I watched through the open glass doors as the line beneath musical guest changed. No longer background accompaniment. Now, feature performance. Odalyn Wren, a name that carries with it a sense of mystery and allure. Original creation. I refrained from smiling. Yet, I did inhale. A staff member approached from the side garden. It was the very same person who had given me the crumpled invitation just moments before. He grasped it once more, its surface now even more wrinkled than it had been previously. "A presence lingered near the piano," he remarked. "I figured this might be of interest to you." I carefully pried it open. The phrases, "piano girl," "tentative," lingered on. Yet now, it lies obscured, its surface marked by bold letters, the ink having pressed firmly into the very texture beneath. "I appreciate your efforts in preserving the room." Weeks later, I affixed that note to my corkboard in the office at the community center. As I gently peeled back the layers, an old recital program emerged, a relic from my teenage years, untouched for over a decade. My name lingered, elegantly inscribed in flowing letters. Odalyn Wren. Solo performer. I held back my tears. Yet, I allowed it to remain open. On a Monday, our paths crossed, and I encountered her, my new student. At the age of 13, with elbows jutting awkwardly against the bench and sneakers making an unmistakable racket on the carpet. She remained silent, yet her gaze held steady, unwavering as she took her seat. I inquired if she had any interest in learning scales, but she simply shook her head in response. "They say I'm too quiet to matter," she mumbled, "too invisible to be heard." I gazed at her, and in that fleeting instant, I caught a glimpse of my younger self, hands petite, voice softer, heart resonating louder than anyone could ever comprehend. I smiled and suggested, "Play something they simply cannot overlook." She cast her gaze upon the keys, while I directed my attention forward. It wasn't about seeking attention, I simply longed for my voice to be acknowledged. And at last, they succeeded.